Hi, my name is JD and today I'm going to be checking out my Fryer power station. This is the PS2 model. It actually says it's an integrated reactant amplifier, variable reactive load vacuum tube PS2. So basically what it is it's an attenuator, it's a power amp valve, a valve power amp. It's got an effects loop and it's got a line out. So there's multiple ways you can use this. You could plug your amp into it and then you can go send a line out straight into your computer and use a plug-in like the Wall of Sound to get some IRs on it. I used to actually have the little cab M, I think it was, the actual pedal. So I used to basically run my amp into the power station, then I sent a line out of that into the pedal and then put the impulse response on, and then I'd send it into the computer, and that way there was no latency for recording, because I didn't have a really good PC at the time. So when you're using the Wall of Sound plugin, or to be honest when you're using any kind of plugin, you always get that tiny bit of latency that you can feel it. So when I had the pedal, I just ran it straight in and it was basically like what I've got now. It was just like the computer was just seeing a cab. So but I don't have that anymore, because I went down the impulse response rabbit hole and there's just too many for me, and you're always second guessing yourself. So I've got some cabs now. So the way I use it, you've got the amp, obviously my pedals, I've got the distortion pedal, the noise suppressor, the chorus pedal, tuner. They all go into the front of the amp, then into the amp, then that goes into the power station, and then obviously it goes to the cabs. Now the reason I like this is because of the effects loop. That was the selling point over the, I think it's the Sir IR, and I think there was another one. Oh yeah, I think it was the 2 notes, the actual rack one, where you can, it's got the actual load box in. I did actually have the other one, I think it's the Captor, is it? Not the Captor, the new one, the other one. But the reason about this is, like I said, the effects loop. I can just plug all my pedals in, delays, reverbs, all that. They're in there all the time now. So now when I want to swap amps, just turn off, plug another amp in, all my effects pedals are in there. So what I'm going to do is, there's quite a lot of settings on this that you can actually change the sound, and basically it's just added sculpting of the sound. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what I've got. I've got the amp set up on a really low volume, and even though it's plugged into this, it's in the bypass mode, so it's not actually engaged. So this is what this sounds like. I've got my KHTK Ghoul Screamer on, and I've basically got the kind of setting that I would use. So that's kind of the setting that I would normally use. So I've kind of volume matched this. It's not ideal, but I've volume matched it just so when I turn this on, you can hear the difference that it actually makes, because all attenuators, they do change the sound slightly. It's just the nature of the way they are. If you've got something at high volume, it does sound different than obviously when it's been reduced. So this is without the Fryer power station. So now I'm going to engage that. Without. With. So as you can hear there, it doesn't change it that much, but there is actually a noticeable difference. I'm not even going to do it on the clean, because I think you hear less of a difference on the clean. I've got it distorted so you can hear the differences. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to lower the volume back down on the Fryer power station and turn the master back up, because I normally have the master about 3, which it's a 100 watt head. This, if you had it on 3 in this room, it would just be absolutely blasting. So I'm just going to try and get the volumes right at the moment. Right, so that's the volumes that I'd normally have it set on there and set on there. So the master's on 3, or just over 3, quite high. And I've got this set at halfway. So I'll put the pictures on screen of what I'm actually doing. So this has got 2 switches and 2 knobs. So you've got the flat switch, warm and deep. So this is basically controlling the resonance, kind of the bass side of the amplifier. And then you've got flat, bright and edge, which is just obviously doing the high end. So what I'll do now is they're both in flat, and I've got the presence and depth on the knobs. They're actually on 0. So we're just going to go through the switches at the moment and see what kind of different sounds we can get. This is, don't forget, this is not messing with that or anything like that. It's just the actual attenuator. So this is what it sounds like with everything at flat. Just going to turn myself up a bit, can't really hear myself. Right, so now I'm going to put the switch on warm and we'll hear the differences. So I'll put it back on flat. Warm. Flat again. And warm. So as you can tell, it adds a lot of low end. So I'm just going to put it on deep now, which is probably going to add too much, but warm. And then flat. So from flat to deep is adds a lot of low end. Now this is good if you've got, I think, I don't know if it was the original JMP, has not got a lot of low end. So when you use this, you can thicken the sound up with the, I think it was the 79 JMP, the stock one. It thickens it up really, really good. Obviously on something like this, it's a bit too much because this has got a lot of bass. But yeah, so what I'll do is, I'll tell you what I'll do, I'll turn the bass basically off. It's quite anemic. And it's on flat, so if I kick that up to deep, so as you can tell, it just brings life into an amp that hasn't got it, and I think it sounds really, really good. So yeah, I'll put the bass back to where I normally have it now. I think that's about right. Yeah, so that's back on flat now. So yeah, the deep side of it can add a lot and it makes the sound a lot better. So now we're going to go over to the high side. So this is the flat. This is the bright. Back to flat. Bright. And now the edge, this is probably going to get a bit too harsh. So yeah, that's a bit too much for me. I normally have them both on flat, just to try and keep everything as flat as possible so you can get the real sound of the amp. But yeah, if it's not cutting it for you, you can just use this to get basically better sounds. So this is the edge again. Way too much high end. Back to the flat. That's okay. So what I'll do now is I will turn the presence all the way off. And then I'll put it back on the edge. That's still way too much for me. I don't think I'd ever use the edge. Unless you've got a really dark sounding amp. I'll put it on the bright. that sounds good, that sounds really good. So that's literally with the presence on 0 there, and I've got it in the bright setting. So what I'll do now is I'll put that back to, I think what I had it, I can't remember. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put both of them in the middle. So we've got the middle on warm, and then the highs on the bright. Now put them both to flat. So as you can tell, it just gives the amp a bit more life. So what I'll do now is, that's both at 0, I'm going to turn the presence all the way up. So that's acting more like an actual presence knob, because it is, and it's not as drastic as the switches. But you can tell the difference, but you could sculpt that even more. So I'll just do the depth now. That's the depth at full. And the depth at 0. So I normally have these both roughly around 11 o'clock. So here's the difference, both at 0. I'll put them both at 11. It just fattens it up that bit extra there, rather than going from the flat to the warm. I got more control. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn. Actually, I have had the B setting off. Yeah. Yeah, didn't realise I had the B setting off on that. So yeah, that was basically just the overdrive going into what would be a stock JCM 800. So yeah, I'll put it in the beast mode now. So now we're on full game. So I'm just going to mess with all these switches and go through some drastic different tones. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the presence at 0, the bass at 0 and the treble at 0. Alright, so we'll add some deep switch. Put the bright switch on. And the presence up. So as you can tell, it's I've got really drastic settings on the presence, bass, treble on 0, and you can just bring it back with just these 4 settings. So I'm going to put them both back to flat now, and then I'll put my settings back to where they was. Basically this amp sounds best when everything's on 6. yeah, that's basically the Freyet power station. This has got 6L6 valves in it. So what you could technically do, and what I might do in the future, once I'm going to borrow my mate's EVH 15 watt LBX, the little lunchbox head, and you can actually turn that 15 watt head into a 50 watt head by obviously plugging it into this and then cranking the volume up. So I think the EVH has EL84s, so even though this is, it says it doesn't colour the tone, it does ever so slightly. Like I said, everything does, but it's not that noticeable. So when I do get to borrow that amp, we can turn this 15 watt little lunchbox head into a 50 watt head. Freyet actually do a 100 watt one version of these now with KT88, which I would love to get. It's got 2 channels which are foot switchable, so you could basically almost use it like a boost. But for now, this is what I've got, and like I say, if this ever broke, I would replace it 100%. This is probably the best piece of gear I have ever bought, and I recommend anybody get one. If you've got 100 watt heads that you want to use at low volumes, or like I said, you've got an amp that hasn't got an effects loop. The original JMP 79 JMP doesn't have an effects loop, so now you can basically run your delay pedals. I mean, this has got an effects loop, but they're actually running through the power station. But I'll just put the delay reverb on. So there you go, that's it. That's the Freyet Power Station 2. It's a great piece of gear, and I'll see you on the next one.